I call to order the regular meeting of the Mount Pleasant City Commission, Monday, February 9th, 2026 at 7 p.m. Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Mount Pleasant City Commission recognizes the Anishinaabe, whose ancestral lands the city stands upon today. We acknowledge the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe and recognize that the three bands of Ojibwe, Saginaw, Black River, and Swan Creek, have resided on this land for over 200 years. Our acknowledgement of the full history of the tribe and our commitment to be good stewards of these ancestral lands is an expression of gratitude and appreciation to those ancestors who came before us. We give thanks to the generous care with which the Anishinaabe and those members of the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe of Michigan have given and continue to give to this land and our community. Clerk Schmelzer, will you take the roll?
Commissioner Alsager?
Here.
Commissioner Demarath?
Here.
Commissioner Perschebacker?
Here.
Commissioner Rollins?
Here.
Commissioner Skaletsky?
Here.
Vice Mayor Eke?
Here.
Mayor Wingard?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. All right. First on the agenda this evening, we have a proclamation recognizing February as Black History Month. Whereas Black History Month is an annual celebration of the achievements, contributions, and rich cultural heritage of African Americans, recognizing their pivotal role in shaping the history and progress of our nation. And whereas the origins of Black History Month trace back to the efforts of Dr. Carter G. Woodson and the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, ASALH. We sought to ensure that the accomplishments and struggles of Black Americans are acknowledged and preserved. And whereas African Americans have made profound contributions in every field, including science, education, business, law, politics, sports, and the arts, enriching the fabric of our society and inspiring future generations. And whereas this month serves as a reminder to reflect on the resilience, strength, and enduring spirit of African Americans in the face of adversity, while also recognizing the ongoing pursuit of justice, equity, and inclusion in our community and nation. And whereas the City of Mount Pleasant is committed to promoting diversity, inclusion, and understanding, and encourages all residents to participate in the many educational and cultural events that highlight Black history and culture. Now, therefore, I, Mayor of the City of Mount Pleasant, do hereby proclaim February 2026 as Black History Month in Mount Pleasant and encourage all residents to honor and celebrate the invaluable contributions of African Americans throughout history and today. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand on the Great Seal of the City of Mount Pleasant, Michigan, this 9th day of February 2026. All right. At this time, we also will have a presentation on zoning residential regulations by Director Pawadiko.
Good evening, Commissioners. Just going to put here the presentation very quickly. All right. If I could have the PowerPoint on the screen, that would be great. All right, I think it's working. So I was invited here today just to share a brief presentation on current zoning regulations that apply for the residential areas in Mount Pleasant. There has been some confusion within the community, and so the goal this evening is just to help clarify the regulations so both the commission and residents have clear, accurate information. So first, I'll step back and just speak more broadly about planning. I usually give this PowerPoint presentation in the Citizens Academy, which is about to start in a few weeks, or actually next week. Anyhow, the Planning Community Development Department is really tasked to work alongside the Planning Commission and provide guidance on how the city grows and changes over time. So together with community members and elected officials, we create a shared vision for the future through the city's master plan. And then from there, we focus on turning that vision into action through tools like the zoning ordinance, alongside programs and initiatives that support well-planned developments. So they're basically the two tools that we mostly use on a daily basis. The first one is the master plan, which is a guidance document that sets the basis for development in the city in the long run. It does it through policies such as the zoning map and text amendments. The master plan helps identify existing conditions in the community, and through a participatory process, it establishes goals and priorities for a set number of years. Master plans are also an effective tool to promote cooperation between stakeholders towards common goals and objectives. The document can reach planning really at different scales, all the way from the regional scale, such as by looking at what South Mission Street here in the community means to the region from an economic development perspective, all the way to smaller scales, such as by looking at a particular neighborhood or corridor when we're proceeding with zoning actions. The second tool is the zoning ordinance. The zoning ordinance is a regulatory document that sets rules for how development must occur on a parcel-by-parcel basis. Zoning ordinances are designed to promote public health, safety, and welfare of populations, such as by regulations on what types of buildings and land uses that can occur and where, and how they should be designed. So here, the city of Mount Pleasant made a really big decision back in 2015 to transition away from conventional zoning to what we call a character-based zoning code. While conventional zoning focuses on what you can do on a piece of property, character-based zoning focuses on how a place looks and functions. So if you look through our book, you see that much of our zoning ordinance really controls design to ensure high-quality building environments. So conventional zoning, they separate land uses like housing, shops, and offices all into different zones and require things like setbacks and building height. The goal is really to keep uses apart, but history has shown that the result doesn't always shape how a place really looks or feels, and instead, it has contributed to results such as the death of downtown areas, all the way in smaller to bigger cities. Character-based zoning, instead of focusing on separating land uses, it encourages their mix and really emphasizes building design, scale, and how buildings relate to the streets and to neighboring properties. The goal is on quality and character, with goals to create walkable neighborhoods where residents can quickly access daily services. It also aims to support traditional downtowns by bringing residents to these areas where there is a concentration of local businesses already. Overall, it allows for a mix of uses that support each other. So in 2015, the Mount Pleasant City Commission allocated funds to develop a new form-based zoning ordinance after recognizing that existing zoning standards were failing to achieve the development outcomes desired by the community. So in 2016, there was a kickoff event that was held, which included interviews with many members of the Planning Commission City Commission and a public presentation to introduce the community to the project and invite their participation. Following up that process, the city hosted what the city called Planapalooza, a 4-day event that included public workshop and 4 roundtable discussions on topics that included downtown, corridors, neighborhoods, and economic and industrial development. Hundreds of community members participated through more than 40 hours of open studio time at City Hall. And then it concluded with a work in progress presentation to share the outcomes of this collaborative process. A draft ordinance was then worked and prepared in 2017, leading to its adoption in 2018. So as a result of that work that started, I guess, over 10 years ago, we have currently the Mount Pleasant zoning ordinance, which is comprised within our residential areas of 4 character districts, 2 of which permit primarily single-family detached homes. Those are the CD3L, which is the Suburban Large Character District, and CD3 Suburban Character District. And then we also have 2 different zoning districts that permit a variety of different housing types. CD4 General Urban Character District and CD5 Urban Center Character District. So to know your zoning, you need to look at the zoning map and locate your district. So if you want to look for your house, you go on the zoning map, see where your house is located, and then in the legend, you can see which district you're in. So those are the 4 residential districts that I just mentioned. A very important note is that you need to look at the special requirements. We have what we call special overlay requirements that apply in addition to all the base regulations. So here, just to cite an example, where we have the residential only overlay, which is shown with the white lines on the lighter blue color, that means that only residential uses are allowed and commercial uses are completely prohibited. Areas without this overlay, lighter blue without the white stripes, that would mean that commercial uses would be permitted. And they're usually mapped along what we call neighborhood nodes, such as Crapo and Bellows, or commercial corridors, such as North Mission Street. What the community referred to as student housing here, we call in the zoning ordinance rooming dwellings. They are only permitted within areas in the map showing light blue with a chest pattern in white. Those areas are limited to the immediate vicinity around CMU campus and in areas where there is a prevalence of student housing already and commercial activity, such as South Mission Street and south of Broomfield Road. Last, there's a third overlay that applies in downtown and South Mission, which essentially prohibits residential on the ground floor to preserve commercial activity. So now I'm going to dive a little bit further into what we call our use regulations in the 4 residential zones. Within the lower density zones, what we call CD3 and CD3L, represented by the yellow tones, the only residential uses allowed as of right in the districts are single-family detached residences, foster family homes, and transitional housing with 16 or fewer participants. Within medium density zones, CD4 and CD5, represented by the blue tones, other residential uses are also permitted by right. Aside from those listed in CD3L and CD3, they include accessory dwelling units, townhomes, duplexes, and multiple family dwellings, and then mobile home parks. So to explain the list of uses further, foster family homes are included to comply with the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act, which mandates state-licensed residential facilities, including foster family homes, to be treated as residential uses of property and permitted as of right in all residential zones. They cannot be subject to special use permits or procedures different from other dwellings in the same zone. This use has been permitted since before the 2018 ordinance. Transitional homes are protected under the Federal Fair Housing Act and American Disabilities Act, which mandate that local governments provide reasonable accommodations to allow such group homes in residential areas. Here in Mount Pleasant, this use was added as a clarification during the 2023 text change for institutional uses to ensure that existing shelters, especially those for individuals fleeing domestic violence, which are permitted in the community, would not become non-conforming after the text change, nor be exposed during public hearings if subject to special use permits. Aside from these uses which are permitted as of right, the zoning ordinance also permits additional residential uses and subject them to special use permits. Within the lower density zones, CD3 and CD3L, the following uses are subject to a special use permit, as you can see here on the slide. We have duplexes and ADUs, bed and breakfast and short-term rentals, foster family group homes, conversion of larger one family into multiple family dwellings. This last one, the conversion, is only applicable to CD3, and again, only for existing houses that are really, really big and could see more dwellings. Within medium density zones, which are the CD4 and CD5, represented by the blue tones, residential uses that require special use permit are listed, including the bed and breakfast and short-term rentals, like the other ones, foster family group homes as well. And then in addition, we have convalescent homes and housing for the elderly. We also have ground floor level dwellings that would only be applicable in the downtown area and South Mission, where we prohibit them, but they could proceed with a special use permit to be permitted in the first 50 feet of the facade. And then we also have rooming dwellings and registered student organizations, but they're only permitted in the areas with the overlay, the hatch that I mentioned before. So what are special use permits? I thought that I should pause to also talk about them a little bit more. The Michigan Zoning Enabling Act authorizes local governments to include special land uses in their zoning ordinance to set up a review and approval process. So there are very specific land uses that are not automatically allowed in a zoning district, so what I was calling as a right development, but are instead permitted if they meet certain conditions and are approved by the Planning Commission. This process requires a public hearing and notification to property owners within 300 feet. Approval must be based on standards designed to ensure compatibility with the surrounding area. Denial must be tied to specific standards and criteria in the zoning ordinance and supported by evidence that the proposal fails to meet those standards. After approval, the use becomes authorized under the conditions of the permit. The ordinance lays out then revocation procedures, allowing staff to notify the Zoning Board of Appeals, who can hold a public hearing and revoke the permit if that's the case. So regarding accessory dwelling units and duplexes, I'm going to have a few more slides. So I looked into their history and construction activity here in town just to provide a little bit more context. So accessory dwelling units, they have been included as a building type since the 2018 zoning ordinance. However, they have been permitted since prior to 2018, and they were regulated under what the previous zoning ordinance called single-family cluster development option, which permitted multiple homes on the same lot, either clustered as smaller single-family homes or attached like townhomes. Now, it is defined as ADU under 2018, and rules have been more restrictive than they were before. Now they trigger a special use permit in CD3 and CD3L and are allowed as of right only in CD4. Since 2018, only 2 accessory dwelling units have come forward with a special use permit, which are here shown in the images that on the slide. Duplexes have also been permitted in all residential areas in Mount Pleasant since 1926, which was the city's first ordinance. Between 1961 and 1970, they became limited only to areas where offices, student dwellings, and retirement homes were also permitted. But between 1971 and 1999, they continued to be permitted as of right in all residence districts. In 2000 then, so duplexes started requiring a special use permit, and that requirement has been carried forward under the 2018 ordinance. Duplex construction were more prevalent during the years in which they were allowed as of right, with production declining after the special use permit started being required in the 2000s. So thus far, there were 105 duplexes constructed in the past 25 years, so at a very slow rate of 4 a year. Next, I'll just close with residential districts and commercial uses. As residential areas, commercial uses are prohibited anywhere mapped CD3L, CD3, or CD4 with a residential only overlay. This includes the prohibition on personal service establishments, such as barber shops, beauty parlors, shoe, clothing repair, dressmakers, tailors, hair, nail salons, tattoo or piercing establishments, and licensed massage therapists. Commercial amusements, such as indoor golf range, are prohibited in residential areas. Their rules refer to what we call home occupation, which can permit business activity if it meets very restrictive criteria that I have here summarized in the slide. These rules have been unchanged during the 2018 ordinance, with home occupation rules existing at least since 1984. Criteria includes not occupying more than 20% of the floor area of the house, so we're talking just a little office space in a corner, No goods or signs can be visible from the street. No person other than the dwelling occupant can be employed. Home occupation cannot be conducted from an accessory building like a pool house, a shed, or a garage. No exterior alterations are permitted to make it look like a commercial establishment. And they cannot open to the public earlier than 7 a.m. and after 9 p.m. They cannot produce any noise, vibration, smoke, dust, odor, etc. Deliveries must not exceed just one a day. And then several uses are specifically prohibited, including any sort of auto appliance or any other type of repair shop, veterinary uses, photo studios, massage parlors, and etc. Any operation that generates more than 8 patrons or customers a day would also be prohibited. So that concludes my presentation. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions, and I can always be available to you or the public via email or phone call. Thank you so much.
I have a question, actually, a comment. A resident called my attention to a situation where I would believe that the house is in CD3, perhaps even CD4. Well, because I had to turn to look at where a neighbor has been engaging in business, basically furniture repairs and item repairs, sanding, because one of your criteria there is no noise, no, what is it? No noise, vibration, smoke,
Odor.
dust, odor, and all that.
Mhm.
Well, if we use that, this particular resident is violating all of that.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know, I mean, how do we address that? How do we enforce our ordinance,
Mhm.
because that becomes a health hazard for, the neighbor or the neighborhood.
Yeah,
I'm glad that you did this.
Yeah, no, this is great. So there are multiple ways. If a resident calls either the planning department office, building safety, or the fire department, all of us will connect and make sure that we are addressing the complaint. We do register the complaint in our software BSNA, and then we'll have code enforcement through the fire department take a look. Aside from the zoning ordinance, we also have the city code that also establishes that no nuisance can be created in neighboring areas. So let's say if the complaint is precisely about noise in the evening, or if it's dust throughout the day, the code enforcement folks can go there, take a look, verify the issue. They usually make contact, and our fire chief is here that can just talk more about process.
Mhm.
But they usually try to make contact to notify the owner, or if it the case of a renter, make sure that they comply. If it does become a zoning ordinance violation, there are penalties and municipal civil infractions that we can basically, start notifying the owner. For the ordinance point of view, so if it is a zoning ordinance, so let's say upholstering is not allowed as a home occupation business, so that would be a use violation. We
Mhm.
can notify in writing and give 30 days for that to be resolved. If not resolved, we can start putting, fines towards the homeowner.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'll let them know.
Yeah, thank you.
Other members of the commission with questions or comments at this time? Not seeing any? Okay, thank you, Director. At this time, we'll move into additions and deletions to the agenda. Are there any changes members of the commission would like to make to the agenda at this time? Not seeing any. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Okay. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Motion made by the Vice Mayor and seconded by Commissioner Skalitsky to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor of approving the agenda, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Okay, at this time, we'll move into public input on agenda items. If you are a member of the public and would like to speak on any of the items on the agenda, please step up to the microphone. You will be given 5 minutes. Please state your name and address and the item you are commenting on for the record. If you're on Zoom, please use the raised hand feature. Were there any emails received at this time? Okay, any raised hands? Okay, not seeing anyone in the audience? This time I'm going to go ahead and close public input on agenda items. And now I'll move us into receipt of petitions and communications. Manager DeSense, if you would.
Receipt of petitions and communications this evening includes process for handling proclamation requests, including the implementation of a standardized submission method for members of the public and monthly report on police-related citizen complaints.
All right, thank you. Okay. Next on the agenda is our consent items. Manager DeSense, if you would.
Consent items this evening includes approval of the minutes from the regular meeting held January 26, 2026. Consider approval of resolutions to decertify 200 feet of Center Drive and Toma Drive to west dead end of Center Drive. Consider approval of resolution establishing income and asset levels for poverty exemptions to 2026 property tax assessments. Consider approval of contract with Mead and Hunt for $19,923.03 for the acquisition of a pull-behind broom attachment for the new loader. Consider awarding the contract for the 2026 pavement marking project to M&M Paving Marking of Grand Blanc for $46,537 and a budget amendment of $4,779 in the parks budget, and approval of payrolls and warrants.
Powerful. At this time, are there any items in the consent agenda members would like to move into the regular agenda?
Number 6, the resolution establishing income and asset levels for poverty exceptions for 26. I am interested in having a conversation regarding that. If I reread the packet correctly, those standards are set by federal minimums. Whereas I'm interested in looking other ways that we can protect some of our more vulnerable members of our community to avoid losing their homes.
We can move item number 6 into the regular agenda under new business. Let's put that after item number 12, actually. So we'll, after appointments to various boards and commissions, we'll go into a discussion on item number 6.
And I do also have a question regarding number 8. Do we know if M&M is a union contractor? No.
Okay, any other questions at this time? Any items we'd like to remove from the consent agenda? Okay. In that case, I would take a motion to approve the consent agenda as modified.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as modified.
I'll second that.
I will give it to Commissioner Alsager this time. She was beaten out last time. Let's see. Motion made by the Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner Alsager. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as modified, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Okay. That brings us to public hearings. We have 2 public hearings on the agenda this evening. The first one is item number 10, public hearing on resolution number 3 and number 4 for the Special Assessment District number 1 through 26 for the Principal Shopping District. Manager DeSense, if you tee up the conversation.
Absolutely. City uses a special assessment for the maintenance, beautification, snow removal, and utilities for amenities that serve the downtown. The Principal Shopping District Board has recommended the renewal of the special assessment for 2026 and 2027. The City Commission is asked to hold a public hearing to determine the necessity of a special assessment to be used to provide the aforementioned services as well as promotions. After the public hearing, the City Commission is asked to approve the attached resolutions, which will confirm the need for funding and set a public hearing for February 23rd, 2026 on the cost of the assessments.
Thank you. Are there any questions from members of the commission before we open up the public hearing? No? Okay. And then at this time, I will go ahead and open up the public hearing for item number 10, If you wish to comment on this topic, please step up to the microphone. You'll be given 5 minutes to speak. Please state your name and address for the record. If you're on Zoom, please use the raise hand function. Were there any emails received? Any raised hands? Anyone in the audience to speak on item number 10 for the public hearing? Okay, not seeing anyone at this time. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing on item number 10. Turning back to the commission then. Is there any motions from members of the commission that we'd like to entertain?
I would like to make a motion to approve the resolution 3 and 4 as presented.
Second, oops.
Give it a down on the end to Commissioner Rollins. Motion made by Commissioner Skalitsky to approve the resolutions number 3 and 4 for the special assessment districts, seconded by Commissioner Rollins. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Okay, that'll bring us into our second public hearing of the evening. A public hearing to consider the amendment of section 110.28B regarding the operation of transitory food service units and the issuance of permits, licenses, or approvals for transitory food service units. Again, Manager Sens, if you would.
Staff has identified an error in the city's ordinance governing food trucks. The amendment offered in 2024, which we had last done, it doesn't support current practice for allowing food trucks to operate as part of city-sponsored events or an exemption to the annual fee. The proposed modification provided by the city attorney offers language which corrects this issue. After the public hearing, the city commission is asked to approve the proposed ordinance amendment as written.
Okay. Any questions from members of the commission?
Could you elaborate further on what would be considered a city-sponsored event?
So especially farmers market, any kind of city-sponsored event in which we might be partnered in things like, I believe Fire Up Fest, we had partnered in that one. Director Biscorner, any others?
So it's basically any of the applications that we get that we allow in our parks or downtown. We have to approve them, obviously, but the goal is because there's not very many food trucks licensed, and so it's for variety. So that's what it was for a lot of years before that. So we're just trying to change the language to match what it was prior.
Okay, Director Biscona, stay there for a second, please.
Just trying to fall.
Please do not trip. Okay, so I'm asking for clarification. I just want to make sure that I'm hearing you correctly, because each September, the city co-sponsors the Isabella County Human Rights annual event, Let Peace Reign.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's say hypothetically, a food truck were to be present.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're saying to me, complete. What happens to the food truck in terms of this?
So if you wanted to have food trucks there, you would just have to put it on your application, and you could have them. They still have to be licensed by the state and inspected by our fire department. There's
Okay.
no change in that, but yeah, that's all you would have to do. And they're only allowed to operate during the event. Once the event's over, they gotta cease,
Okay.
and they can't start operating prior to the event either.
All right, that helps. I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying. Okay, thank you. Excellent.
Okay. Before we go into the public hearing, my question is for the clerk. Just a reminder, this is an amendment to an ordinance. Do we need a roll call, or can we do that just all at once? If there's a question, then I'll call for a roll call and everything when we come to it, but we'll get around to that and everything. So in any case, at this time, I'm going to open up the public hearing. Again, you all may step up to the microphone. You'll be given 5 minutes. Please state your name and address. If you're on Zoom, please use the raised hand feature.
Are there any raised hands on Zoom at this time? Okay, any emails? Okay. Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is David McGuire. I actually have some prepared remarks, but when I heard what I just heard, I have a question about. It sounded to me like for special events, we're going to allow food trucks that are not paying a fee to be licensed in the city. I'm not sure, but I think that's what I heard. So that makes what I'm going to say very interesting. The original intent of the food truck ordinance was to level the playing field between brick and mortar restaurants and folks that were transitory, that's the name of the ordinance, that came into town, sit here for 2-3 hours, cherry pick the dinner hour or whatever. We wanted to I think I was involved back then, but anyway, the city wanted to make sure that those people had to pay some sort of fee or tax to make them level with the brick and mortar folks that paid tax every day, had to pay all their overhead and so forth. They wanted to level the playing field. That was the whole plan. This past summer, I built a food truck to sell ice cream downtown as an extension of my business, Magoo's Warehouse, which is located at 122 South Washington Street. At the time, there was no regular ice cream sales downtown, especially after 2 p.m. The drugstore was kind of hit and miss. I contacted the city and expressed that I should not be subject to the transient food truck ordinance because my trailer is permanently on my property, which I own and I pay property tax on. And also the downtown assessment that you folks just discussed, I pay plenty of that. I was told that I was probably right and they would get back to me. 3 weeks later, I called and said, I'm about to open. I assume I'm all set. I was told, no, you have to comply with the ordinance. So I went through paid my $635 or whatever it was, had my background check done, did everything I was supposed to do. I was then told by your staff that I was going to have to get a letter from the Blackstone Bar to be able to operate because I was within 150 feet of a brick and mortar restaurant. I stewed about that the entire evening because I got that call at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I got up in the morning, went down to my business and said, how far am I? So I went and looked, and the ordinance says you have to be a food truck. Now, mind you, I'm on my own property, but a food truck out in the street needs to be 150 foot away from the door of a brick and mortar restaurant. I measured, I was well over 150 feet. I called back and said, wait a minute, I'm over 150 feet. I don't need a letter. I was told, we don't know where your food truck is. But I was told I needed to get a letter even though they didn't know where it was located. So what I am asking you folks this evening is to I was going to get a formal letter to you and ask you to look at this ordinance. But then I just stumbled on the fact that you're looking at the ordinance this evening. So I came running down here, and while you're looking at it, I would suggest you put a carve out in that ordinance for people who own their own property, who have a food truck on their property that they pay property tax on, and the truck doesn't move. I understand if I wanted to move that somewhere else in this community, I would need a food truck license. Apparently not if I want to go to one of their events, though. I got to pay $635 to sit on my own property. But if I want to go down to the farmer's market, apparently that's free. This is crazier than I thought it was. I thought it was really crazy in the first place. It's gone nuts now. Somebody from out of town can come into town, sell food for free, but I can't do it on my own property. I have to pay $635. I want to tell you this, folks. Magoo's Warehouse sells firearms. We have a federal firearms license. And I will tell you, I don't know what this says about the world, and there's no sarcasm, nothing going on here. It was far, far easier to get a license to sell firearms on that corner than it was to sell ice cream. Way easier. I don't know what that says. And I have more here. I'm not gonna get into it real heavily. But I've lived in this town my whole life. My family goes back into the 1800s around here. I am the furthest thing from a transient that you've ever seen. There's no one in this room that's less transient than me. So hopefully you'll consider what I've said. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience who'd like to give public comment at this time? Are there any raised hands? Any emails? At this time, I will go ahead and close the public hearing on item 11 and turn back to the commission. Commissioner Alsager.
I think Mr. McGuire has a valid point.
Vice Mayor Eke?
Yeah, I agree with him. You know, he already pays taxes, and I think we could modify the language and include an exemption for, property owners, who already pay tax. Yeah. All right, I'm talking to him. Property, people who are permanent, have permanent, businesses here and pay taxes. And yeah, I do agree with him. I think, we should, actually not just could, we should consider that and include such language that also exempts them. I'll support it. It's a good idea.
Other Commissioner Perschbach.
I would suggest that we send this back to staff with the extra information that we've received to have it rewritten.
I agree.
Commissioner Sklitsky.
Yeah, I believe some more clarification might be needed to distinguish exactly what those licensing fees were for, if that was to get the truck itself registered or if that was just the standard fee. If you have some clarity on this matter, it'd be appreciated, Ms. Corner.
I'm gonna do my best to give you as much clarity as I can. But as far as I know, so my predecessor, so I took this over probably within the last year. But basically what I was told is that fee was essentially just to offset taxes for the brick and mortar building to the food truck. That is it. That is the only thing that fee covered. When we brought this original ordinance to the city commission back in 24, we put various options on the table as far as lowering the fees down to $100 just for inspection purposes, just to encourage more food trucks to come to the area. And it was decided that the $650 was the fee. It went down from, I believe it was 1,000. So it was lowered, but basically that's it. That's all that fee goes towards, is to offset taxes.
I'm gonna circle back around to Commissioner
And then-
Alsager for the
Well, I'm
question.
kind of guessing that Mr. McGuire might be in a unique position that with his property that he has room to put a food truck.
I don't disagree with anything anybody's saying. I'm just saying what I know to be true.
Okay.
I would be more than happy to research how to change that ordinance, however you want me to change it. I'm just letting you know what I know up to this point.
I think that's our request.
Okay. Vice Mayor?
Commissioner Alsager said what I was about to say. I'm not so sure that the issue is, well, it could be a combination of the fee and the fact that he couldn't have a food truck there without, the assessment. Okay, so if he already pays some assessment, he pays taxes for that space, which belongs to him. Really, it's his property. It's more like he parks his car
Right.
there and sells something out of it. So taxing him again or imposing another fee seems to me a little bit unfair. So I think what we need to do is send it back to staff. You do the investigation.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, the only thing you want me to look at though is property owned by the people who have the food truck.
And it's on their property.
That's the
Even
thing.
on their
Yeah.
property,
But that-
yes. Mhm.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
I just want
Yeah.
to be clear as to what we're talking about.
yeah, the placement of the truck on their property.
So if I might ask a question or everything, if there's a food truck driving around town and it's determined that they don't have a license, we could assess a fine or a fee for operating without a
They would
license, I would
be,
imagine.
they would be asked to leave.
Gotcha. So essentially, if Mr. McGuire ever did take his food truck and start driving around, we would then be able to say, hey, you don't have this, like, the required
You don't-
license.
Yes,
Yeah,
Okay, but because he's on his property, we could say, like, again, it's his
Yeah,
property.
but like he said,
Yeah.
he could come to our special events down at the farmer's
Yeah.
market if he wanted to bring the truck down there for no fee as well.
Gotcha. Let's see. Other members of the commission with questions or comments at this time? Oh.
I would be interested in making sure that there is language that ensures the standards for the food being served. If it's not gonna be included in the licensing with the. with
They have to
the-
be licensed through the state, through the health department. Is that what you're referring to?
With it being on the same property, I just wanna make sure that it is being established, cause I mean, I could set up a shack outside,
It has to be inspected by the health department, though,
Right.
no matter what, so.
A food truck is portable and it's one of those things that, if an inspector came, it could not be on site very easily. Right?
They have to be inspected
they have to
Gotcha.
be inspected regardless.
On a regular basis,
Yeah.
correct?
yearly.
This, yeah, they still have to meet the criteria. Yeah.
Yeah,
They're inspected yearly,
gotcha.
and they have to have updated,
Which would be part of that licensing process.
Right.
correct.
But if it's being excluded because it is,
It still
on-
has
They
to be
still have to
licensed.
It doesn't matter, they still.
Everyone,
that's, okay,
Real quick.
that's my only concern.
we're getting a lot of crosstalk here and everything, so Doug, did you, you stepped up on anything, any clarity that you wanted to just throw
Fire
in on?
department inspects all of the food trucks. He would be allowed to come in and would still get an inspection. The food trucks that are transient and come into the events would still get an inspection also.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Real quick, I want to jump over to, manager dissents, if you will.
Absolutely. Just something I wanted to clear up with the city commission, just so that we're aware. Any fees that are associated with the provision of the food truck licensing have got to provide for that exact service. And so I understand that former staff had instructed current staff of their belief of what the food truck fees were for. It is not to offset taxes. The food truck fee is to provide the service as is legally required for every fee that we have within the city. So I just want to make sure that goes onto the record and is clearly stated here. All that to say, though, there could be some justification for considering a food truck that is not transitory in nature, being much easier to regulate, and so therefore some sort of a different treatment for a system like that. Certainly we want to take that language to the city attorney just to make sure that's okay. So I think I would think it's permissible, but obviously it's just something we want to take to the city attorney.
Good idea.
Okay. Members of the commission who haven't had a chance to speak on this topic yet, Rollins, Demiroff, any?
I mean, I'm in agreement. I think the
Yeah.
private property thing not being transitory, I think that should be something that's addressed. Absolutely. And if that means sending it back to get some new wording, I think that's appropriate.
Okay. Rollins.
Same.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Yeah. With that in mind, looking to members of the commission for a motion, it sounds like it would be a motion to refer this amendment back to staff for revision based off of our discussion, but
I move that we refer the motion back to staff for revision.
Gotcha. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Okay. There was a motion made to send back to staff for further revision, the amendment to for further revision by the vice mayor. It was seconded by Commissioner Skalitsky. Is there any additional discussion? Or is there any additional discussion on the motion? Okay. All those in favor of sending the motion to send the amendment back to staff, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Okay. That brings us into new business for the evening. First item is number 12, consider appointments to various boards and commissions by the Appointments Committee. The Appointments Committee had met this past week, and we had several appointments that we were looking to make. Just reading them off to members of the commission real quick. First would be for the 2 seats on the Planning Commission with terms expiring December 31st of 2028. Be a Mr. Charles Crespi and a Mr. Jake Boyd. And then the other, and I'll make motions after this and everything, but would be for Stacy Keipinger for a Zoning Board of Appeals term ending December 31st of 2028. Any questions from members of the commission? Not hearing any questions immediately, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion first for the Planning Commission. So I will motion to appoint Charles Crespi and Jake Boyd to the Planning Commission for terms ending December 31st, 2028.
Seconded.
Okay, motion made by the mayor, seconded by Commissioner Skalitsky. All those in favor of the appointments for the Planning Commission, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Motion passes. And the second one will be for the Zoning Board of Appeals. It would be Ms. Stacy Keipinger. Term, and so I motion to appoint Ms. Stacy Keipinger to the Zoning Board of Appeals, term ending December 31st, 2028.
I'll second that.
Seconded, motion made by the mayor, seconded by the vice mayor. All those in favor of the appointment, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Okay. That brings us then again to back to item number 6. This was moved from the consent agenda over into the regular agenda and under new business. The item was consider approval of resolution establishing income and asset levels for poverty exemptions to 2026 property tax assessments. Just to give us a bit of background on the topic, Manager DeSense, if you would provide us with some information.
Yeah, absolutely. So the resolution that you have in front of you establishes the poverty guidelines, which must be met for a property owner to claim a poverty exemption from property tax assessment. The guidelines are provided by the federal government. A local municipality can adopt guidelines that are higher but not lower than that number. The proposed resolution allows the city to establish guidelines as the lowest rate set by the federal government. And I do apologize in that you can't set something, you could not exempt a property taxpayer, and clarification here, that is the rate that you would have to adopt. You could go lower than that, you can't go higher. So for instance, for a single individual, according to the federal guidelines, it's about $15,000. We could not raise that up, let's say, to a $20,000 or $40,000 limit. We don't have that capability. So point of clarification there.
Gotcha. My question, do you know, is this, like, that's part of the discussion that we're looking to have here. Do you know what authority, requires the regulation with federal guidelines being the standard?
The state of Michigan is what sets the exemptions for us. So any kind of property tax exemption is set by state law. And in this case, the state of Michigan had chosen to adopt federal poverty guidelines.
Okay, gotcha. How often do we update this?
This should be done annually.
Annually? Okay, thank you for the reminder. Vice Mayor Eke?
Manager DeSense, do you know what percentage of residents fall into these categories?
So we had one request that was granted last year for the 2025 tax year for poverty exemption.
Okay. Thank you.
Let's see. Other members of the commission with questions or discussion at this time?
Yeah, I believe that I must have read that backwards as far as the language on there. It seemed like the commission had a little bit more power to try to manage that with foreclosure for back taxes being a high contributing factor for the loss of home for individuals and the housing situations that Mount Pleasant faces. It was something that I wanted to open up for a conversation for the commission to take a better look at. Thank you very much for your clarification on that issue, Manager DeSense.
Yeah, is that something that the city is able to provide citizens information with? Like, is it like, are we promoting it? Are we notifying people that this is a program that they can take advantage of?
Yes, Steph told me we have some information on that on the website. So we do have at least links to that. There's very few, and in fact, this is the only one that's poverty-based that would be available to individuals, but we do have links to that on our website.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Other members of the commission with questions or comments on this topic? Okay, not seeing anyone. Let's see, in that case, I would consider a motion. Sounds like probably a motion for the approval.
I move that we approve the resolution establishing income and assets levels for poverty exemptions to 2026 property tax assessments.
Second. Okay. Motion was made by the Vice Mayor to approve the resolution and seconded by Commissioner Rollins. All those in favor of approving the resolution, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Okay, that brings us into announcements on city-related issues and new business. Turning to members of the commission, Commissioner Alsager, any announcements or new business you'd like to bring forward?
Well, the only thing that I was investigating a little bit today was last meeting I mentioned the chill grants that are available. And I picked up a packet today and looked at it, and that is also income-based.
Okay, Commissioner Demiroff.
Nothing at this time.
No. Vice Mayor Eke?
Not necessarily city, but in general, there are still events happening for Black History Month at CMU, and I encourage people to attend. The other things that I have to say have to do with February 11th is the International Day of Women and Girls in the Sciences. Not too many women and girls in the sciences, so we want to recognize that. February 12th is International Day Against the Use of Child Soldiers. I realize that we don't have child soldiers in the United States, but maybe there are quite a lot of them internationally. But I think it is important to recognize how our lives are also affected by things that happen outside our city. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Perschbacher.
The only thing that I have is, I believe, and Manager DeSense, can you help me with this? We're going to do a brush cleanup. Is that something in April? Yes.
Yes, we're going to do our no-fee brush pickup a little bit early this year because of the storm damage that we've seen throughout the winter. And so we're going to be doing that mid-April with signups toward the end of March. And that information will be in the March water bill.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
That's it.
Okay. Commissioner Rollins.
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Commissioner Skolitsky.
Yes, the Mount Pleasant will be hosting the Central Michigan International Film Festival here in a couple of weeks. And I'm pleased to announce that the Broadway Theater is going to be taking part of that, hosting a documentary followed by and having a conversation about 30, 40 years of music in Michigan.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Sklisky. Vice Mayor Eke, did you have?
This is for manager dissents. I recall a complaint about ice, snow clearing, and I thought that we had developed an ordinance or expanded our ordinance at a certain point to address that. Is it time to at least remind people what the ordinance says? Or at least address this, because I noticed that a lot of people living next to sidewalks are not, doing what the ordinance says. So whose responsibility is that? Maybe it is time to clarify, this particular issue.
Yeah, we certainly could push out some more information to remind folks about the requirements to clear sidewalks.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see, for myself, just two housekeeping items, for members of the commission. The first, I'd like to direct, in the agenda, I'd like to direct your attention to item number 2 under receipt of petitions and communications. So we had previously talked about, potentially adopting a policy, regarding proclamation process for the city of Mount Pleasant, how we go about doing that, and also how members of the public could, in a uniform manner, request proclamations for recognitions in the city of Mount Pleasant. Again, included in the agenda this evening is a potential policy for commissioners to review, and then in our February 23rd meeting, the idea would be to have that as a regular agenda item. If there's additional discussion that we want to have at that time, we can propose changes during new business, or we could direct staff to make specific changes. We could request a work session further on the topic if desired. But it seemed, in discussion with staff, it seemed like something relatively straightforward, and wanted to just make sure members of the commission were aware that it's in there, in case any feedback was they wanted to get feedback to staff on that topic then. The other item that I had was just a reminder for members of the commission, if you have not yet had a chance, please make sure you reach out to Manager Dissents to confirm potential availability for April 6th. We're discussing having our goals and objectives work session that evening. So just make sure that you communicate with staff. Otherwise, that should be it for announcements on city-related issues and new business, which will bring us into public comments on agenda and non-agenda items. If you're a member of the public and would like to speak on an item either on or off the agenda, please step up to the microphone. You'll be given 5 minutes. We would ask that you state your name and address for the record. If you're on Zoom, please use the raise hand feature to indicate you'd like to speak.
Oh, hello, good evening. Margin Odstein, 1361 South Crawford Street. I'm here for my favorite cause, zoning the 30 acres at the empty corner at Broomfield and Crawfield. I want zoning only for the purpose of building detached homes. Not giving it away to a group will not help the tax base or help the housing shortages for medium income housing, but a group who could build anywhere in the surrounding township. I see their $1 million nest listed in the Planning Commission minutes, but for 2 years, this piece of property is the only land they want. The last few acres of this area that Mount Pleasant has for a group of houses to build up its population. The city just can't grow land to build on. I've always tried to think for the best choice for the good of everyone. But when a church group cannot see that this land is needed for the future of the city, I can't understand them not thinking about what's best for the community beyond their walls. We have to think for the future, not just the next 5 years. It has to be long-term. Think years from now, when there are no buildable lots for a group of homes in this landlocked city. Do you even know what 30 acres looks like? I always think of my parents' 10-acre lot that we had when I was growing up and put three of them next to each other and I say, that's 30 acres. Well, 30 acres is approximately 23 football fields, including their end zones. If you drive a quarter of a mile down the road and through 3/16 of a mile, not quite a quarter of a mile deep, that's 30 acres. The Meyer store and its parking lots, 30 acres. The middle school's 27 acres. It's for 700 kids at a football field and a parking lot and a school and a bus barn. Vowels is for 400 kids. It has 12 acres. 12 acres compared to 30. It has a school, more than one parking lot, a playground, green space, and about a quarter or more of that 12 acres is wooded. What does a small private school need with so much property? Of course, it is free. If you give the school and church this property, they will always have control of that land. You may not be thinking about a decade in the future, but I'm sure that the churches are. If the school fails, the land will still be off the tax rolls and they can do what they want. And I think the commission should think what's best for the entire city. We already have such a large percentage of our land as untaxed. And of course, my beautiful map. 30 acres, quarter of a mile along here and 3/16 of a mile deep. This is already CMU. So this is, to me, this is our civic zone that they have to worry about. I don't know why you would have to think about civic zone in any of this other place over here. This group of units didn't think about civic zone much. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak at this time? Are there any raised hands on Zoom? Any emails? Okay. At this time, I'm going to close announcements on city-related issues, or excuse me, I'm going to close public comments on agenda and non-agenda items. We have a work session still this evening on fire code updates. Right now it is 8:07. Is there interest on a recess before we go to our work session?
10 minutes.
Gotcha. We will be at recess and we'll resume at 8:17. So again, for those in the back, we're going to be having a work session on fire code updates, and looks like I'm gonna just turn it right over to Chief Doug Lobsinger, if that works for staff.
Good evening, everyone. Like they say, they save the best for last, right? But the director's been telling me all day, said as long as it's short, I said, yep, we'll be out of here before 10. But anyway.
Okay, you can bring it down a little bit
Anyway.
more.
I'm here once again to continue discussing on the International Fire Code. We're currently under the 2012 International Fire Code, and the building codes under the 21 code, electrical code is, mechanical codes are. I'm here tonight to ask you to consider adopting the 21 Fire Code. And I'll explain this a little bit as I go through it, but it's important for us to do this. It's kind of urgent for us because we need to have the consistency across the codes because we work together with one another on different things and be very beneficial. We've spoken 3 different times on this, and we were given some specific questions to answer regarding, I think we're pretty much all in alignment on adopting the International Fire Code, the 2021. The one obstacle was whether or not we wanted to include appendices M, which is the sprinkler retrofit for high-rise buildings. He asked me some questions to provide some additional information about how other communities are addressing this and some of the problems they've run into. Most of the communities have run into a lot of expenses. That's the biggest one that's held us up. I think this is a great code, and I think we really need to continue to look at it down the horizon. But it's a big pill to swallow to say that you're going to spend over $1 million on a building because the code changed, and we're going to make you do that, because we're the ones that's going to enforce the code. So we'll get into this a little bit. As far as the options of having something in between of adopting M and not adopting M, we really don't have any options. We're going to either adopt it one way or the other. Either we adopt it all and the entire buildings get retrofitted, or there are some options for them. But anything in the middle is really not an option for us anymore. Those things have changed, and I see it continuing to change down the line. What this really comes down to is, while there are some communities in the state of Michigan that have adopted appendices M, most have not. Most have chosen not to because of the financial burden that it puts on the property owner, and also the burden that it puts on the community to enforce the enforcement of the code. Many states are offering grants and different programs where they pay for partial of it, a portion of it. Federal government is involved with tax credits. There are 2 bills, one's in the House, one's in the Senate right now, trying to provide more options for them. I really don't see this as a viable process until the state and the federal government gets more involved in the funding resources of this. Some states, Minnesota has $10 million on their budget every year for retrofitting sprinkler systems. That's a big pill to put in there. Some communities have adopted and put appendices M in and then said, we're not going to enforce it now. So I think it's really important for us to just slow down a little bit and to let some of the legal actions that are taking place and some of the bills that are out there run their course. So at this time, what I would like to ask the City Commission to do is to make a motion to adopt the 2021 International Fire Code, omitting appendices M, and then giving us the direction to work with city staff and attorney to draft our ordinance that would once again come before you. And in closing, I do believe this is the codes that have changed are getting more stringent. And I do believe the next time, 24 or the 27 International Fire Code, they may address it and there may not be an option. It may be in the code then. If that happens, we'll face that at that time. But I think there's got to be some change at the state and the federal level. Any
Thank you.
questions? Yes.
Vice Mayor.
Okay, I want to make sure, first of all, thank you, the director Love Singer. So I want to make sure that I'm hearing you correctly because we have discussed this fire code several times. You are saying to us, wait, don't, we can adopt this code without Appendix M. That's what I'm hearing, right?
That is correct.
Okay, just
The-
so.
The reason that is I think it's as important matter in which we do something is just as important. We can pass the ordinance, but then we got to enforce it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so we're creating a lot of burdens for us and a lot of burdens for them.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you. I mean, you know, we always wait for directions from you. I mean, you do the research. You've done the research, you know what's out there. You are going to be the person or the persons enforcing this, not us.
The
It's just
sprinkler systems are critically important in these buildings.
Okay,
And I don't want to get away from that. It's very important. They're also very expensive. And I think we all need to be part of the solution, the federal government, the state government, maybe even the local government at some level, some way, I don't know. But to just tell somebody like that, you're gonna put $1.5 million to $2 million into your building. And, okay, what if they can't? What if they legitimately can't? What are we gonna do? Write them a ticket, take them to court?
okay.
You know, so our best source is to gain compliance, not with the hammer.
Commissioner Sklitsky.
Do you feel it would be pertinent for the commission to look at ways that we can start setting money aside so that way we can address this in the future? For us to stay reliant on state and federal grants leaves us in a vulnerable position. Whereas if we could act proactively and try to work alongside some direction,
I think that's a pretty big question, one that I probably wouldn't be able to answer. One of the things that I have done is I've spoken with Senator Gary Peters about this. I've met with his aide on a second time. Jerry Nyer is aware of this. And we just need to start some communication channels. And see if we can get some interest in that, because it's not going to be any one entity. The city of Mount Pleasant's not going to be able to partner and to take care of that. Now, you know, we can be part of the lobbying efforts. We can be part of the educational efforts. My goal is to continue to try to educate the property owners of the importance of fire safety and why it is that we want these as badly as we do. And we've had success with that. You know, Pleasant Housing Commission has done a lot of improvements on their own, trying to be compliant with this. I think we just need to continue to work in that avenue.
I had Commissioner Al Sager next.
Well, I know that we don't pass motions during work sessions, but it sounds like those of us that have spoken already, that we're pretty much in agreement about passing it without M.
Yeah,
The
keeping
word
Appendix
escapes me.
M off, yeah, gotcha. Vice Mayor.
I just, again, just as a recall, how many buildings are we talking about here that would be affected by?
We have 2 that would qualify under this as requiring sprinklers.
Okay, that's what I remember. I just want to make sure again that I'm recalling correctly. Okay.
Other members of the commission
Thank
who
you.
haven't had a chance to comment at this time. Commissioner Tamar?
So Winchester Towers is the other one. Are they working at all on their own to make improvements?
They always are. They have a different system down there completely. They do have a fire pump where Moser One doesn't, but they didn't need one. But Mount Pleasant Housing is ahead of the curve there. They have been able to do more. It's not that they don't want to, it's just that everything is very expensive and type of housing it is, it's hard for them to find funds but we continually have discussions about it.
Thank you.
Yeah, echoing Commissioner Alsager, it sounds like the majority of the board seems to be in general agreement about passing SANS Appendix M. So if staff wanted to draft the necessary language for us to be able to approve at a future meeting, it sounds like the commission would be open to that then in that case. Only other thought I had, just while we're on the topic, the Housing Commission keeps coming up. And again, as you're talking about like strategizing and making and like supporting community efforts in this, I know that in the last couple of months, we've talked a lot about housing as it is. It might be worthwhile, not immediately, we have a busy schedule as it is, but looking to schedule a joint session with the Housing Commission, potentially of just like a work session, if there's topics of interest that come up or anything, of ways that the city could potentially partner there. But that's just my thoughts. Again, it's a work session. I'm not passing a motion or anything, but it's something that I'd be interested in the future potentially. Is there anything else from members of the commission at this time?
Nope.
Staff, any final comments, questions for us? Okay. Not seeing anything then. No additional businesses before the commission. We stand adjourned at 8:29. Making good time.
Oh, happy day. Look at this picture. Skolitsky. I am gonna leave with. Must be. Must be.
I am allergic to tobacco.